Welcome back. You're watching What's Hot on CNBC TV 18. In a move that can have significant impact on the Indian IT industry, US lawmakers have introduced a new legislation with additional restrictions on H1B visas. On What's Hot tonight, we ask, how will this impact Indian IT companies? Joining us, Ganesh Natarajan on the phone line. Ganesh, many thanks for joining in. This is not law as yet, and it's only presented for legislation. But what kind of impact is this likely to have?
See, if it passes the way it is, obviously it's going to have fairly disastrous impact, because this particular piece of legislation is very different from the last time they presented it, because it also includes a provision called 50-50, which means that if you employ more than 50% of your people are visa dependent, then you can't employ more people with visas. So that's very, very problematic. So my hope is, in fact, we've spent a lot of time with Senator Grassley and the staffers of Senator Durbin, that they understand the implications. The implications being that it kind of flies in the face of free trade. It is primarily will target Indian companies. So I'm very hopeful that over the next 3 months, we will not see this really becoming enacted.
Right, Ganesh, but you've had conversations with US senators in the past as well. The rhetoric as well as the proposed legislation seems to be looking pretty ominous at this point in time. If this does go through, what does this actually do to cost structures? Because this gives on-site offshore a completely new meaning, especially given the 50-50 provision.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, it could well mean, for instance, if a company is employing, let's say, 5,000 people in the US, and on a normal percentage, 70% of them could be H1 or L1 visas. It could literally mean that you'll have to find replacements of 1,500 people. And it's not just the difficulty of finding the replacements, but, training them, there's a huge cost involved. There could be a lot of business discontinuities. And I personally think, Shireen, that these people will realize it, that when it goes into debate on the floor of the House, it won't get passed, at least certainly not the way it has been filed.
Mm-hmm.
Let's in fact hear what Infosys CFO Balakrishnan had to say about the impact of this on Indian IT.
Bringing in a 50-50 rule, which means if you have X number of employees in the US, you need to have 50% of the X employees as locals, and 50% can be from in work permit like H1 visas or L1 visas. Now the 50-50 rule comes in, there are two views possible. One, if you don't comply with that rule, you may not get additional visas. Second, it may say that from day one, that rule will be enforced, and you should have the right proportion of people on site from day one, that is 50-50. So the implication for software companies could be that they have to change the proportion of people working on site in the US.
All right, you heard one view there. Ganesh, given the fact that a lot of people in the US as well will be viewing this as a restrictive trade practice, what are Indian IT companies or the Industrial Association doing in terms of explaining the situation as far as our position is concerned?
See, we've actually had 3 or 4 meetings. I mean, we worked with Tech America, which is the local association there. We've met Senator Grassley. We've actually had sit-down meetings with all the staffers of the various people, and they understand the implications. In fact, we even mentioned to Senator Grassley that this will specifically be seen as, against India, which is not a good thing. And they've heard us, and I think at least the indication we got was, okay, let this get filed. We'll discuss it, because the U.S. legislation is discussed before, during, and after the event. So that's why I'm not particularly perturbed, as you heard just now. It could be disastrous if passed in the current format, but I'm pretty sure it won't.
All right, you're pretty sure it won't be passed. Ganesh Natarajan, many thanks for joining us on What's Hot tonight.